Okay, so let's just start with today's session. First of all, I just wanted to show you guys what we are going to make today. It is a to-do list smart contract, and it has these functions: add to-do, so we can add a to-do to our to-do list. We can delete a to-do from our to-do list, and we can get all our to-dos, so all the tasks that we have added so far, and also we can get the length of our to-dos. That means how many tasks do we have in our to-do list, right? So let me just demo this to you guys, like how is it working. So first of all, you can see I have this account selected, right? The first account, this one is DC4. In the last there is DC4, right? This account. And when I go to my contract and I try to add a to do, let's say the first one is just to do one, okay, and I click on add to do, you can see the transaction went through, right? It was successful. And when I will click on get to dos, you can see the first to do here, to do one. Now if I try to add another to do, let's say to do two, like, and we can get the to do again, and you can see that there is to do one and to do two. Let's add another one, so we have now three to dos. All right, this is how it's working, and this is for this first address, right? These to dos are for this first address. If I select the second address, which is cb2 in the end, and I get go here and call this function get to dos, you can see there is no to do here. Why? Because this wallet address do not have any to dos added to his list, right? Because every address has their individual to do list. Okay, now I can add, like, let's say task one here to this address's to do list, and then when I will click on get to dos, I will get task one for this address. Then I can add task 2 and I can get the task 2, right? And the length is of course 2 because there are two to dos in our to do list. I will also show you this delete right now. Now when I go back to this account, the first account, which was DC4, remember we added to do 1, to do 2, to do 3. So when I will click here on get to dos, you can see that they are still here: to do 1, to do 2, to do 3. So basically, um, this to-do list contains to-dos for every one of the individual account, right? It maintains their to-do lists separately for each account. Now let's say I want to delete this to-do 2 from my list. I have completed that to-do, right? I want to delete this to-do. So what I will do is I will go here, I will put its index. Now you know index starts from 0. So to do 1 will have an index of 0, to do 2 will have an index of 1, and to do 3 will have an index of 2. And I want to delete this to do 2. So I will put here 1, which is the index of to do 2, and I will delete this, and you can see the transaction went through. So when I will click here on get to dos, and you can see that to do 2 is gone. Now we only have to do 1 and to do 3, and now the length is yes 2. It was 2, like, okay. And when I can come to the second account, I can get its to dos. I can delete the to do here, like the second one, and now the length is 1. So this is how our smart contract is working, right? And we can make a front end for this smart contract using ethers.js. And it's very easy in Solidity to maintain to dos for individual accounts, and I will show you how. So we can make a front end for this, and we can make a to do list where different wallet addresses can add their to dos, and we can display those to dos, delete those to dos in the front end. So that's it, but we are not going to create a front end for this. We are just going to be covering the Solidity part. Is my screen fine? Am I lagging or something? Is it fine?
Yeah, it's perfect. Fine. Continue.
All right.
Yeah, the only
So
thing I could just say is, make sure I'm pretty sure you but gonna get to it, but just like show the code. I know you going through like the buttons and all that, so I just want to point that out.
I'm sorry, LJ, I didn't get you. What did you say?
No, I'm saying I know you're going through like the buttons and like the functions and all that, but just like I don't see any the code, but I'm assuming that you're doing it purposely.
Yeah, I was just I was showing it firstly. I was showing like what we are going to build today, and then we will code it together.
Ah, I
Yeah,
I
see.
was
it's best
All
to see
right,
the
my
end
bad.
product.
okay. So first of all, to make this smart contract, we haven't covered two topics so far that you need to know in order to make this smart contract, and those two topics are message.sender and the delete keyword in Solidity. Alright, so what we are going to do is we are going to cover these two topics first. And I have already made a different Solidity file for them, which is extra topics.sol. You can see. So we are going to cover message.sender, which is a global variable in Solidity. Alright, and a delete keyword. So first of all, you need to know that in Solidity there are default values for every data type. All right. So when you declare a boolean, by default its value is going to be false. All right. When you declare a string, by default its value is going to be empty string. When you declare a uint, its value by default is going to be 0, and for an address it's going to be null address. This is the null address, right? So Solidity has default data types, but in like in JavaScript we do not have default. Sorry, I said default data types. Solidity has default values for each data type, right? But in languages like JavaScript, we have something called undefined, right? When we define a variable or something, when we say let message and we don't provide any value to this message, its value by default is undefined in JavaScript. But in Solidity, this is not the case, right? It has default values for every data type. Now, um, let's
Uh,
come to this. Yes.
can I add something?
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure, please.
Solidity is influenced by C++ as well. So, if I don't know if any of you have done C++ programming, C++ also has default values that are very similar that Sahil just explained that also exist in Solidity. So Solidity inherits these properties from C++, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just come to this extra topics smart contract. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just declare some state variables here. Let's create a uint public and call it number. All right. Let's give it a value of 78. Okay. And then let's create a string which is going to be public, and let's call this string a message and give this a value of hello. All right, and let's create a boolean as well. What do we call it? Let's say is posed or something. Okay, let's give this value of true, and let's also create an address. And this address data type can only contain addresses, the wallet addresses of a user. So let's make it public and call it my address. Okay, and now the value that I'm going to give to this variable is my the value of my wallet address, which I can come here and copy, right? And then I can paste it here. So these are some of the state variables which I have defined here in our smart contract. Now, in order to explain to you what message.sender means, let's create a function and call it get message sender. This is going to be a public function view, and it's gonna return us an address, and what we are going to return is message.sender. All right, so this message.sender basically means the wallet address of the person who is interacting with our smart contract currently. That's what this message.sender means. It will become more clear when we will deploy this smart contract, and I will demo this to you. So basically message.sender means the current person who is interacting with our website with our smart contract. All right. So I will show this to you when we will deploy this. So for now, just hang on, and let's create another function called reset. All right, and this is going to be a public function. Let's now what we are going to do is we are going to use delete keyword in this function. Now delete keyword in Solidity does not actually delete values, right? It just resets them to their default value. As I told you the default values for some of the data types here. So delete keyword just defaults those values to their default values. I'm sorry. So delete keyword does not actually delete variables. So what we are going to do here is we are going to delete a number, all right, which was 78 before, and we are going to delete the message as well. We are going to delete is paused and my address as well. All right. So we have this smart contract. I'm going to compile this. All right, it is compiled, and I'm going to come to this deploy tab, and let's deploy it. We have our smart contract here, and right now you can see that the value of is paused is true, because that's what we set it, the value we gave it, we gave to this variable, and the value of my address is this address that we gave it, right? And the value of number is 78. Now let's click on this get message sender function, and as you can see, this is the same address that I pasted here, because this is the same address as this account, the account from which I am calling this function, right? CB2, this first account. Actually this is the second account, but whatever, it is equal to the this is equal to the account from which I am currently calling all these functions, this message.sender. So that means the value of message.sender right now is this value, which is same as my address. Now what if I come to another address here? Let's say I come to this CD4 account, this first one, and I call this again, which is get message.sender, which will just return us message.sender. Now when I click on this function again, you can see that this account changed, right? It changed to DC4. So that means that this message.sender is the address of the current user, address of the current wallet address which is interacting with our smart contract. If I change this to some another address which is 372 in the end, and I come here again and I click get message sender, so you can see it again changed to this 372. All right. So message.sender basically means the see all these values, right? These values. Now what if I click on this reset function? What if I call this reset function? So when I call this reset function and I click on this value again, which is paused, you can see it is changed to false, because by default the value of a boolean is false, right? It changed it to its default value. When I click on message, you can see we have nothing here, because it changed it to an empty string, that is the default value of a string, right? And when I click on my address here, it changed it to this null address, because this is the value of an address data type in Solidity by default. And when I click on number, it changed it to 0. All right. So that's what this delete keyword does. It just changes them to their default value. I hope that this delete keyword and and message.sender are very clear to everyone right now. All right, I think it is clear to everyone. Um, let's just let's now create our to-do list smart contract. We have everything we need to create our smart contract. So why not just
Sahil,
jump? Yes,
Sahil,
Farhan?
I have little issue in delete keyword. So you were saying that do not delete in the list, okay?
Yes.
So what is it basically doing?
It is just resetting. It is just
Okay.
resetting um, the data type to its default value. As I just told you that, for example, for a boolean, the default data type is false. For string, it
Yep.
is an empty string. So if we call delete keyword on a boolean data type, it will change it to false. If we call delete keyword on a string data type, it will change that string to an empty string. If we
Okay.
call it on a uint, it will change it to 0, because those are the default values for these data types. Got it?
Okay. Okay. Thanks, man. Yes.
All right. So let's go and make our to-do list smart contract now. What we are going to do here is I have already added some comments for what we are going to like add here. So let's start from the line one. So on line one we have this license, and you guys should be familiar with this by now. We are on day 4, and then we have the Solidity compiler version. All right, then we have the contract keyword to declare our contract, right? And we are naming this contract to do. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to store to do list, right? We want to store separate to dos for individual accounts. How can we do that? So we can use a mapping for that. Now let me just create a mapping here. Like, what I mean by mapping is, uh, let me just open up my Jamboard here. Actually, LJ explained it yesterday. LJ explained mapping yesterday, but still I have made kind of like a diagram for you guys to help you better understand it. Um, let's just wait for it to open. Okay, I guess my my browser is not responding. Cool. Yeah. My is my screen visible?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you go now.
Okay. All right. So just imagine this whole thing as a mapping, right? And then we have individual addresses, right? Let's say this is the first address, and then the value of this address is going to be this list, right? This list can contain all the uh, to dos that this address has added, right? It can contain like to do 1, to do 2, to do 3, and these to dos are for this address only, for this wallet address. And then this can contain another wallet address, this one, and the value of this wallet address in this mapping is going to be this list, this array. And this is an array of strings, right? And these strings are basically to dos of this wallet address. Okay, so it can contain addresses. This mapping can contain addresses like these, and the value of these addresses will be arrays containing the to dos. So this was just kind of like a diagram. I tried to visualize it to you guys, if this was helpful. So this is like kind of like a representation of a mapping. Okay, so what we are going to do here is we are going to make a mapping, and this mapping is going to be from address to an array of strings, right? This is an array of strings, as I just explained here. These are addresses, and these are arrays of strings. So this mapping is going to be from this address to an array of strings, and this is going to be public. Let's call this mapping to do's. All right, so we are going to store all the to do's for individual addresses in this mapping. So now let's just come here to the add to do function and create a add to do function, and in this function we are going to accept a string, right? Because we want to add a to do to the list, so we are going to accept that to do, and that to do is going to be a string value type, right? Because it is a string of arrays that we are storing, and we will store this in memory, and we'll call this just to do for now in the parameter, and we'll make it public function. All right, and what we are going to do here is we are going to take the to do's mapping. All right, and for the message.sender means the current wallet address. That means let's say this guy is interacting with the chat, so we are going to access this mapping, and then this address, so we will give array, right? This array of all the to do's that wallet address has already, and then we are going to just push this to do that we got from the function. So basically what this function is doing is it is adding another to do to our existing array of to do's for that address, right? That's what this function is doing.
Sahil,
All right. Yes.
can you add a comment in line 10?
In line 10. Okay, sure. Adds the to do to the array of to do's for this individual address, which is message.sender. Okay, so I hope this function add to do is clear to everyone.
Sahil,
Yes, Talha.
so basically that message.sender thing is acting exactly like the one you showed in diagram. So basically that is an array in which whatever the current address is, message.sender is representing that, and it is adding an array as a string, right?
Um, it's it's basically, so this to do's, consider this to do's as these curly brackets. Okay, these curly braces, this is the whole mapping. All right, and then what it's doing is it's accessing the array. So to do's of message.sender, let's say the
Yeah.
current user is this one. Okay, so to do's of message.sender means to do's of this address. Okay, so to do's of this address is going to give us this array. So we have reached this array, and in this array we are just going to push the to do
Push
that
to-
we just called.
Okay.
All right, we are just going to add in this array the, let's say we got to do 4. All right, so in this array we are just going to add to do 4. That's what
Leading
we
array
are.
by the push keyword.
Yeah, so the push keyword just adds that I'm sorry, the push keyword just adds that element to the end of the array.
Yeah.
Okay, it's basically a method. It can be used any on any array.
Inbuilt function, yeah.
Yeah, it's an inbuilt method or function, you can say. All right, so let's head over to the get to do's function. So in the get to do's function, we want to get all the to do's for the current user, for the person who is interacting with our smart contract. All right, so let's create a function, call it get to do's. All right, and we are not going to supply any parameters here. Let's make this a public function and view function, and it's going to return us it's going to return an array of the to do's, right? It's going to return an array which will contain all the to do's for the current user. So it's going to be an array of strings. we are going to store this in the memory, and then what we'll do is we will just return to do's of message dot sender, right? So to do's of, let's say current user is this one, okay? So to do's of this address will give us this whole array, okay? So it will return all the tasks, all the to do's for the current user, for this user, all right? So it's going to return us this array. Okay, I hope that's clear to everyone. So what we can do is from our front end, from our website, we can call this function in our smart contract get to do's, which will return us this array, which will return us all the to do's for the current user, and then we can just loop over that array and display all those to do's to the user on the website. That's how it's going to work. All right, and then let's create another function here, which is get, oh sorry, get to do's length. All right, this is again going to be public view returns, and it is returning a uint, right? Because the length of this array, that means the number of to do's that a user has is a, that's a uint, right? Because that's a number, so that's why we are returning a uint here. And what we'll do is we'll just return to do's of message dot sender dot length. Now this dot length is also the inbuilt kind of thing, like we can call dot length on any array and it will just return us the length of that array. All right, so we are just returning the length of the array which is containing all the to-dos for that user. Now comes the fun part, the delete to do function, right? uh, Also, just to let you guys know, this function is like, it can be kind of confusing for beginners, like, so just let me know when I if I lost you guys, okay, anywhere, just let me know. Let's create another function called delete to do, okay, and it's going to accept an argument which is going to be uint. It's going to accept an index, right? We are going to supply the index of the to do which this function will delete. Let's say we want to delete for, let's say this is the current user, and this guy has completed his to do one, okay, and now he wants his to do one to delete from the list. So we, this guy is going to supply 0 as a parameter to this function, and it will delete this to do one. So essentially it will just then give a it, then it only these to do's will remain in the array. This is what this function is going to do. So we are going to accept an index for the to do that we are going to delete. This is going to be a public function, all right, and then we are going to, sorry, require. Now this, there is a require statement in Solidity. um, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention it in the extra topics, but let's just cover it here. So this require function in Solidity is basically, this is for checking for a condition, right? It will check for a condition. If that condition is true, then this function will go forward and execute. If this condition, if the condition that we put inside require is not true, then this will revert. The function will not be executed and the transaction will revert. So in the require, what we are going to require is that the index that the person has supplied, which is this index that we are accepting, you know what, let's rename it to dash index, because underscore index, because that is kind of like convention in Solidity. So we are going to require that the index that we accepted from the user should be less than two do's of message.sender. So to do's of message.sender is basically the list of uh, the array of the tasks, array of the to do's for the current user, dot length. Okay, now why we are doing this, why we are requiring that the index should be less than the length of the list of the tasks. We are requiring this because the index cannot be larger than that, right? Let's say this is the to-do list that we have and it has 4 to-dos. Okay, so index of first one is 0, index of second is 1, third is 2, fourth is 3. Now the length of this array is 4. All right, and the maximum index that can be in this array is 3, right, which is of this last element. So we require that the maximum index that this array can contain is 3. If it is more than 3, that element does not exist in our array. So in that case we don't want our function to execute. So with this require statement we are just confirming that the index is in fact in the array, right?
Sahil,
Yes, Talha.
Sahil, so in Solidity, is it necessary to write any conditions or conditional statements in require as a parameter or so? Or we can write conditions without using require keyword as well?
Yeah, we can use like if there are also if statements in Solidity, we can use them as well.
But I guess that charges a
There's no problem
gas
with
fee.
that. Okay,
If
my
if
ping is.
charges gas fee.
Yeah.
I was once doing a programming, like I was doing a Solidity, but when I used if, it was giving some error. It was maybe because of some old pragma, like the old version. So it's better to use requires most of the time if not needed.
Yeah, I'll say that require and if else they're
Actually,
very
I yeah,
yeah. I just want to say require and if else conditional statements they are pretty similar, but yeah, you'll be
Yeah.
using require a lot more. Require and Solidity. We'll get into this more, but require is like if and else, except like it's a must, meaning that that has to be correct. If and else, that's situational, meaning that that doesn't have to execute. And like Solidity, we mess around with money, and
Yeah.
Solidity, we don't want to have bugs and all of that. So a require it prevents things like that, and like hacks and stuff like that. So
And also gas fees also I guess is less charged in require rather than using if conditions. Right,
yeah,
Abbas?
I think so because in if and else it like general my I mean in visuality it's more lines of code in if and else, right? And require is just one line of code. I don't know
Yeah.
about this in detail, but I think yes, require should charge less amount of gas than if else.
Yes, it's true. Yeah.
So what would happen if we don't give require and pass to our first to-do list?
Sorry, what did you say? Can you repeat?
Yeah. Uh, in our first to-do, we have only three as a maximum index, right? So without giving required, if we
Yeah,
pass four to that uh, to-do, what would happen?
it will throw an error because that index does not exist. That index does not exist in our function in our array, so the function will fail and it will throw an error, and we don't want any errors. That's why we are requiring this.
So it's a waste of gas.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
yeah, that requires statement, just reiterating kind of what Sahil is saying. That requires statement is so that the user, the person that's executing the function, does not call an index that is outside the boundaries of their like to-do list. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So after this require statement, well, I just realized it right now. Actually, we don't even need delete keyword here. Okay, so um, let me just complete this function with delete keyword first, and then I will just omit that part and show you why we don't need delete here. Okay, so what we are going to do here is we are going to delete to do's of message.sender, that means that array of to-dos of index. So what we are doing here is we are just resetting the value for that index. Let me show this to you guys in action. Let's deploy the smart contract. What error is it?
It's a underscore index, I think.
Oh, yes.
Inline points.
My bad. Okay, let's deploy the smart contract. And all right, let's add a to-do here for this address. My current okay, let's select this one, first one. Let's add a to-do for this first address. Let's call it to-do one. Add. The transaction went through, as you can see. Now when I click on get to-dos, you can see I have to do one, so our add to do function is working fine. Let's add to do two and get it again, and so we have to do one and to do two. So yeah, our add to do function is working fine. We can also select another address here. Let's select this one, second one, and add to do add, let's say, task one for this. Okay, and when we click on get to dos, we have only task one, because that is the only to do which this wallet address added. Now let's get back to the first wallet address and get to dos. We have to do 1, 2 and 3 for this address. All right, now let's test our delete function so far. So what we are doing here is we are just deleting this index that we supplied. So let's say I want to delete this to do 2, right, the second to do. So the index for the second to do is 1, right, because index is start from 0. When I click on delete to do, the transaction went through, and let's get the to dos. Now as you can see, if you see like closely, here we have two commas, right? Why do we have two commas? That's because it reset the value of the second task, which was a string. Task 2, sorry, to do 2 was a string. So it reset its value to empty string, right? Now there is nothing in there, and that's why we have two commas. But the length of this array is still going to be 3, right? Because we have a second element which is an empty string. This did not actually delete it, this just reset its value to an empty string. That's why we have 3 in our 3 elements in our array. But we don't want that, right? We want to delete it permanently. We want to delete that second element permanently. So how can we do that? So what we are going to do is we are going to just take that index that the person is wanting to delete. We are going to say to-dos of message.sender of index that we got from that person. So we are going to take that index and we are going to set its value to the last value of our array. So that means in this case we are going to set the second index. The second index was to do 2, so we are setting its value to do 3 now, which is our last index, last in our array, right? So we are setting this to do's of, I'm sorry, to do's of. Now this is going to be message.sender of. Now we want the index of the last element in our array, right? Because that's what we want it to be. We want the second element to be the last element. Now we are setting its value to the same as the last element. So we are going to take this array, and we know that the index of the last element is going to be 1 less than the length of the array, right? You can take the example of this array. We have 4 elements in this array, right? And the index of the last element to do 4 is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, right? The index of the last element is 3, which is 1 less than the total length of this array, right? So we are just going to say it's going to be to do's of message.sender of let's get the length of this array, which is get to do's length. We have already declared a function for that, right? Minus 1, as we know, because this is the index is going to be minus 1 of the length. So we are just right now we are just setting its value to same as the last one. Let's compile this smart contract and deploy it again, just to show you guys what is happening right now. So we have task 1, we have task 2, and we have task 3, right? Let's get the to do's length, which is 3 right now, and get to do's is task 1, task 2, and task 3, right? Now what now let me just pass one index to our delete to do function. When I do that and get to do's again, you can see that the second task 2 is changed to task 3, right? We assigned its value to be same as the last value in our array, right? But we wanted to delete the task 2, right? It's not yet deleted, it's just changed to task 3. We want it to be deleted and we want the length to be 2 instead of 3. So what we are going to do now is we have already assigned the last value to that index that we want to delete. Now what we are going to do is we are just going to pop the last element. Now what is this pop? This is pop is an inbuilt method in Solidity. It just deletes the last element from the array, and by delete I mean actually delete. This does not reset it to anything, it deletes the last element from our array. Right now this function is complete. Okay, what? Okay, it's going to be to do's. I'm sorry. uh, Wait a sec. Yeah, I'm back. So
Sahil?
yes, Talha.
Sahil, so in JavaScript sessions, there was a detailed session about arrays. In it, we studied shift and shift push pop. So all these are applicable in Solidity as well.
No, I don't think that we have shift function or like unshift function in Solidity. I think we only have these
Push.
push and pop. Yep. Though I'm not sure, you can search it up on Google.
Okay.
But these are like the common ones. Push pop.
Yes.
You'll see that in every language, not just Solidity, JavaScript.
Yes.
Yes. So now our function is complete. Let's compile it and run this again. Now when I add to do 1 here, right? Let's add to do 2 here, and let's also add to do 3 here. Okay, let's add to do 4 as well. Oh no. Okay, let's just test it with that previous example first. Now we have these 3 to do's, to do 1, 2, and 3. Now we want to delete the second one, which is the index of 1. We supplied that value, and we can get to do's again. Now you can see that to do 2 does not exist. It was actually deleted, and we can get the length, and we can see it is actually 2 now. So that was actually deleted, right? We can also add another, let's say to do 4, to do 5, to do 6, right? And when we get those to do's, we have to do 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now let's say I want to delete to do 3, which is again at index of 1. Okay, let's delete to do 4, okay, which is at index of 2, 0, 1, 2. So when I pass 2 to this, and when I again run it, you can see that to do 4 is the value of to do 4 is changed with to do 6, which was our last element, and then last element was popped out from the array. So that's how this is working. This function delete to do is working. Now why did I say that we do not want delete here? Why did I say we do not want delete keyword here? That's because we don't need it to delete it, right? We are here in this line we are just resetting its value to empty string. So why even set it to empty string? Let's just set it to the last value directly, right? Why we have to reset it? It will, I think it will just work just fine if we delete this line here. All right, so I deleted that line. Now let's test it one last time by deleting that line. Okay, my laptop is hanging, I don't know why. It could be because I'm streaming. I don't know. It's okay.
It could potentially be a remix because when you have a lot of files
Yeah,
on it, yeah, it starts
yeah.
freezing up, and then you have to refresh it and all that. So maybe.
So I have compiled it. Let's deploy this again. Now we do not have that delete keyword here, right? Now let's add task 1. Let's add task 2. Let's add task 3. And get to dos, we have task 1, task 2, task 3. And we also have the length, which is 3. Now let's delete the first one and get to dos. Yep, it works just fine, as you can see, right? We don't have task 2 here, and the length is also 2. So yeah, we did not actually need delete. um Yep, I guess that's pretty much it. I wanted to specifically mention this. If we had to create the same app, if we had to create the same to-do list app using Web2 technologies, then what we'll have to do is we'll have to we'll have to integrate authentication in our app, and we'll have to maintain individual to-do lists for individual accounts, right? So that would be a lot of work using Web2 technologies. But in the Web3 we get this inbuilt accounts, right? We get inbuilt addresses. So it was very easy, right? As you can see, it was just 30 lines of code using Solidity, but using Web2 technologies it would be a pain in the ass. So that's kind of cool here, right?
Sahil, could you explain again what you just said, like the Web 2 part, like how it?
um so I think that people who are already familiar with Web2 technologies and authentication in Web2, they would be understanding me. Rahul, you don't, I think you do not have that, right? So, but again, let me just explain it. Like, in Web2 apps, when we log in with our Google account, when we log in with our email, right? It
Yes.
maintains a record for us, right? Like when you log into an app using your email, it creates an account for you, and then it stores all your information in that app, right? It stores your name, or every or anything, any of your information, like your encryption or anything, like in Discord, right? So it creates individual accounts for us using that, and it's kind of a lot of work when you
Yes.
have to implement that authentication. You have to send magic links to people to sign in into their app, and you have to maintain their passwords. You have to, it's kind of a lot of work, if you are understanding what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Here you don't have to do anything like that.
Yeah, I want to say because like the beauty of like Solidity, you are like interacting with the blockchain, and the blockchain it kind of acts as a database, and with Solidity it is super easy to like store data and like update it. Um, one of my front end projects.
Yeah,
It's like
absolutely.
it's a comment section. It's basically a CRUD app, and if you don't know what CRUD means, is create, read, update, delete. And I'll just
Yeah.
say that, man, it is so much more complex. Solidity, you could do
Yeah,
it in a few lines of code, But like a CRUD app, like a to-do list or a comment section, something like YouTube, I mean, that's like hundreds of lines of code, so much more complicated. So Solidity, it makes that so much easier.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sahil, I have one question right here. Uh, if you see, when we delete some index, for example, if we have 5 items, so if we delete the second one,
Yes.
the logic is
Yes.
that the second one should not swap with the last one because it will make some disorganization. So the logic is that the second index should be swapped with the third one.
Yeah, so we are not implementing that here. We are not changing the second one with the third one. It is swapping that with the last index. But we have only to do list, right? I think it does not matter for us to, like, I don't care if my to dos come, like my first to dos come up or down. Like, I don't think that the order matters here, right? But if we had to do that, if we had to implement that functionality, we definitely can do that. um, there are two ways to implement that as well. The first one that we can do here is, as we swap the second the index value with the last one here, we can do a loop and we have to decrement the index of each one of value using that way. And another option that we have here is, um, we can do is, we can actually associate the index of these values with the, what we can do is, we can create a list of struct here instead of string. We can create, we can actually, I don't know if you guys are familiar with structs right now, but they are kind of like custom data types in Solidity. We can create our custom data types, right? So what we can do is, we can create a struct for a new data type, and that data type we can assign a value to it.
Okay, okay, great.
Sahil,
Kind of like, think of like that.
you
And
breaking
that
up kind
data
of
type
bad.
accepts our task, a string value, and also the index of that value. So we can store both of them in one struct, and we can actually implement that functionality.
I think it's lagging.
Yeah, Sahil's
Or
breaking up a lot.
The front end, we
sorry.
can then, according to that index, we can display it. Yeah, Abbas.
Yeah, you were lagging a little. It's okay. You can type that answer in the pair programming chat. It's fine.
It's kind of a long answer. I think I might not
Yeah,
be able to type it.
90%.
Yeah. I think it's fine. I mean, whose question was this?
Yes,
It was
yes,
Isanullah. Yeah, Ehsan. So I can explain it to you in
Yeah,
in the DM, if you like really want to implement that functionality.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Or we
uh,
can or we can build it another day, another Solidity session. We can build it together here. But I think that order kind of does not matter here, so that's why it was fine for us.
Sahil, can you go back to the code?
Yeah,
Uh,
sure.
I think that we didn't use the delete keyword today, right?
Yeah, we did not.
We did not use. I was thinking that maybe so that delete keyword would actually like remove the whole array itself if we kind of give it to the mapping. Like what that delete kit, like if we use the delete,
No,
like
we were not deleting the whole array.
no, not right now. But if we have to use the delete keyword, which we like learned in the initial part of the session, would it like
Yeah.
will we be able to delete a index using that keyword, or will it like remove everything? Is that what I watched?
if we supply the value of the index, it will just default its value to that element. Like now, right now we had elements which are strings, right? And we supplied it a particular element. We supplied it the index was its initial, that was its default value. Had we supplied an array to delete keyword, it will just remove all the elements in the array, and it will just default that value to an empty array. That's what it's going to do.
Okay, like an empty array with the same number of elements, like the elements number would be still the same, I think.
No. Array would be completely empty. You know, you are what I am trying to say here is, see, there we have this delete keyword. What we did before was we supplied it to do's of message dot sender of index, right? So what it did was it just reset the value of this index. I mean, of this index, that means of that element, to the empty string, because that was the initial value. But if we supplied the whole array to this, if we supplied the whole array, not the index, then um, it would just return an empty array. There would be, the length would be 0.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, right now it was taking into account the length of that element as well, because that was just an empty string. It did not delete that.
Yes.
I think you got confused in that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I understood it now.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, cool. Anyone else have any questions?
Hi. Just one thing. Can we add
Yeah.
some error message if requirement is not same?
Yeah. Sure. Actually, thank you for reminding that. I totally forgot that. So the thing is, if this condition do not meet, if this condition is false, then we can also supply a message that it will give to the user, right? So we can supply this message by just putting a comma here and then supplying a string here. So what we can say is, um, the index doesn't exist, something like, okay. So this error message, it will throw this error message whenever this condition will be false. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Now let's try to do that. Let's try to pass it an invalid index. So let's come here and let's say task. We right now we do not have anything in our to-do list, right? So let's supply this index of 1, because we do not have that index in our list, so it should throw an error, right? Pay attention to this console here, because it will display that message here in the console. So let's supply to it one index to delete that index, and you can see the transaction failed, and the message supplied was the index doesn't exist, right? That's why this transaction failed, because we did not have one index. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I guess that's it for today. If anyone has any questions, they can ask right now. Well, for joining. I hope you enjoyed today's session. I hope you learned something today. Yep, that's it for today.
Yes. You can stop your screen share, Sahib, because I think that's why your thing is going up and down. If you learned something valuable with us, tag us on Twitter, LearnWeb3DAO. We will retweet all of your tweets. Use the hashtag Let's Learn with LW3. And if you have any doubts, please ask in the pair programming channel. Sahil, LJ, me, or anyone who knows will answer your questions. And The recording will be uploaded later on by LJ, and thank you so much for joining. Have a good one.
Yeah.
And
Also, I can see many people are coming to these classes just because they saw someone else's tweet on Twitter. So I think it would help if you guys tag us and like say like spread the word that these classes are going on, so others can also join. Yeah, just wanted to say that.
yeah, spreading the word out will definitely help us out. And I just wanted to say, probably already noticed, but tomorrow we'll be going through like the function signature and like public, internal, external, virtual, override, things like that. So just be on the lookout for that for tomorrow because we'll be going over some of that.
Yeah. And you can find the code for every day, like the to-do list smart contract that we wrote today, the extra topics.sol file. You can find all the code in the GitHub repository, which is pinned in the pair programming chat. And you can also find the links to the recorded session there in the GitHub repo.
Um, so thanks, guys. I would like to say something before going.
Yeah, sure.
Anyone who is in this session, I'm one of the beginners. I started a month ago with the Abbas, Yash, and Vatsi classes, the JavaScript classes. And during that time, I tried studying Solidity, and that's when about 15 days ago, Sahil started with me, and this guy taught me so much. And first, like, I made a to-do list contract before this session. I was like trying to, this is my first smart contract which I deployed today, which I made from scratch, and I was trying to do the to-do list. So I have kind of already retweeted it, but I'm saying that is like, it was worth it, man. It was worth being in this community and learning so much in the initial part. You know, I was having a doubt: should I learn this language or should I focus on one thing? But as I started it earlier, like 10, 15 days ago, when I'm seeing today's sessions, it's like very awesome and trying to understand everything. So thank you so much. And apart from the Solidity doubt, whenever you are in the dev post, like in the freshman track or anything, LJ always answers you. You know, be it any time of the day. So you can definitely reach out to him. And thanks for the amazing community, guys. And yeah, that's all. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Rahul, I just remembered the doubt that you asked me in the morning. So you wanted to return a specific to do,
Yeah, I
right?
solved it. I solved it. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Otherwise, I
feeling
thought I
top
would
of
just.
the world, man. Feeling top of the world. My first contract deployed.
Okay, cool. So I thought otherwise I would just show it here how to do it. It's just 2 minutes. Like it
I
won't
think,
take some.
yeah, let me share my screen if you want. Like, I think I've already. I think the contract is already done. Uh, uh, Wait a second.
And I would also like to thank Arpita. Actually, yesterday she corrected. Actually, we said something in the class that was wrong. It was actually the range of int 256. LJ said that it is from -2 to the power 256 minus 1. Actually, that was wrong and we got confused. So Arpita actually DM'd me and she corrected us and she said that it's actually from -2 to the power 155, I guess, right? So thank you, Arpita, for correcting. 255. Oh yeah, 255. Yes, absolutely. So thank you for correcting us.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Even I got to learn something.
Yeah. Okay. I would also like to thank Marmoos for joining. He is like super active in the Web3 community on Twitter as well.
He's in Morocco, and I have a lot of my classmates from Morocco, and it's very late over there. That I know for sure. Probably 5 a.m. in the morning. Let me see what the time in Morocco is.
So Sahil, I have shared my screen. There is not much, guys. I didn't use mapping because I didn't know what would the delete function do. So this is just what was taught in the previous class. Just function, the type which it is going to return, and just pushing it to a string. That's all. Just this is the function. That's all. There is nothing much
Yeah,
in
you
it.
are doing it right. Absolutely, that's the right one. Get individual task.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
was not understanding this, but then I had to do something. I was thinking, and finally, it took me 6 hours to make this. I know this looks stupid, but it took me 6 hours to make. I just completed it just before the session, around 8:30 something. Yeah. So yeah, thanks, I yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, we all start somewhere, you know. That first contract is probably gonna be really hard, but I mean, the more you practice, the better you get at it, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that's wrap up for today.
Okay, thanks, guys. Let's see. Meet you tomorrow.
All right.